Today we're going to talk about innovation, guys, but it's not going to be like big flashy, big tech things or maybe no, but it's not going to be like the innovations that you might think about when it's innovations, like how to invent the wheel or whatever. But we're going to go through 10 different innovations that we've done at Escapist for now, and these innovations have, been the product of happening over the last 10 years or so, if not more. And why am I recording this is basically so you can have a bit of an insight of how Escapist was developed, how the innovations have happened, and it gives you a bit of a window of the experience that it is. And this kind of comes from getting the feedback from members that have moved away, and they reach out and say like, yeah, they miss it, they haven't really found a place similar, and even though they tried, and many of those things are because of these innovations. And I think these innovations can also help somebody who's maybe building something else, like maybe building a business or thinking about doing that, see where the innovations really are in maybe your life, and that's going to maybe give you a bit more insight also into yourself. So not only about like Escapist per se, but maybe something that you're going to be able to learn from and bring to yourself. So let's begin with this one. First innovation we're going to talk about is caring about the invisible work. And this lesson comes from reading the biography from Steve Jobs. And back then when I read this is, I don't know how many years ago, but back then there was no Escapist, I'm pretty sure. But it reminded me from the work that I was doing that I wanted to do something looking good from the inside. Meaning that even though people would not maybe see it, I wanted to make it look good. And that is something that I've tried to incorporate, even though I would say like it's perfectionized or so, but there are many of these like things that I put in and put effort in that nobody else will see. And I have some examples also like outside Escapist, but back in the days when I was like putting up signs on hotel walls in some places, I deliberately thought about like how that would look like for somebody taking down that in a couple of decades, and that person would see there was some kind of care and maybe with purpose of the preparation and how the walls looked like behind the installation, so the things that people would not see. And that mindset is something that I think is still shaping Escapist, and is something that is a part of the innovation that kind of happens all the time. And most of those things are the things that create experience from very early on in the gym. Those are like the silent things that people don't necessarily see. They are systemized, and that is the innovation in it. It's like you can't systemize these invisible things, those things we've done and continue to do. Innovation number 2 is by turning the gym into a lab. And already before starting with Escapist, I came into this, a bit similar like many do, is like you have issues with your back, knees, you feel stiff, but everyone tells you this is just normal, these are your genes, this is because you play this sport, so you're gonna be stiff, you're gonna have these issues, you have bad knees, you have bad shoulders. And it wasn't until I stumbled across Kelly Star, I would say, which is back then was called Mobility WOD, or Mobility Program, then Mobility WOD, and then it became the Ready State. And he talked a lot about like the gym as a lab, and that inspired me also for Escapist to actually see the gym more as a lab where basically every workout, every program, everything we do is an experiment, something we test, we observe, and refine and retest. And that has been one of the cores and core innovations that we have implemented in the gym all the time. Innovation number 3 is that I see Escapist as a study of humanity. So CrossFit taught me a lot about the training methodology. Stephen Covey, who is the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he taught me more about humans. So when I became, or before I became a father, I was, busy with life like everyone is. I read 7 Habits, and I was expecting like these quick tricks and quick fixes and 7 fast ways to, become a good leader, or so ways to get more business, whatever. Instead, I learned a lot of truths from the inside that shaped me, and that most of the problems that we have come from how we see the world and not in our tactics, and how our tactics also can be totally wrong because we just have the wrong paradigm. The lens is the problem and not always the behavior. And this has taught me a lot about like how to interact with members, with coaches, how to resolve problems. And it usually comes down to listening. And one of the parts in the book is, to learn how to listen and listen before you really talk. And the paradigm is also one of those connections that when you actually start listening to people, it can change your paradigm, or you can see from what paradigm people are coming from. So you can see why they have certain beliefs, why they have certain thoughts about themselves, thoughts about just, emotionally, why they're distressed. You only know that if you actually listen to someone deeply. And that I think that is a superpower that most people should use, but that is a part of, I would say, the innovation that we've created is the part of listening deeply and then taking those things and creating products, creating services, or creating processes that help us become better at doing those. And those are, in scripts, it can be in emails, it can be, and goes through all things inside Escapist. Innovation number 4 is to see hospitality as a coaching system. Before, back in the days when I was more in hospitality, I thought hospitality, or I worked with hospitality, I thought hospitality meant like, it's being nice and then making people feel like home. Then I read this book called Unreasonable Hospitality, and I understood that hospitality can be a system and a discipline and a philosophy. So it comes down again to those small details, noticing people's rough days, their birthdays, their bright spots, caring about those and surprising people with those. Not because you necessarily expect something back from it, but because when you start to notice more of these details, you actually you get a more colorful life, and you get a more colorful way of seeing stuff. If you and you can systemize this into the coaching, into the care, in the onboarding, and that's how you can create really good bonding and belonging. Some people are very good at this doing naturally, for sure. You probably already know those and think about those when I say this. Innovation number 5 is inspired by a book called Deep Survival. So survival thinking is the innovation. And this book, it kind of changed me in a different way. It showed me that extreme situations that people go through it's not always the strongest ones that are surviving. It's usually the ones that accept the reality quickly, stay calm, and work with what they have. And that mindset has saved Escapist back in the days, like through the lockdowns and so on. While others waited for the normal to return, we accepted pretty quickly that the normal is gone, and we need to adapt and we need to pivot. And that made us kind of rebuild Escapist from the ground up. And it was not because we wanted to, it was because it was survival was needed, it was required. But it was also like a strong wanting to survive, because there was something to strive for. Okay, innovation number 6. This lesson is that innovation is not always glamorous, but it's repetitive. When I read the book Shoe Dog about the founder of Nike, you realize that innovation is rarely sexy. It is often like small, iterative, and unglamorous things that happen. It is paperwork, it's process, it's counting reps, it's refining systems. It's in his book, like Bowerman, the coach, pouring rubber into a waffle iron in his kitchen, and making his kitchen to a lab. And that was like the first innovation of Nike. And the biggest innovation is that Escapists don't look big. They don't look big. They didn't look big when we made them, but they are the ones that have turned Escapist to something else. It turned Escapist into a media studio during the lockdowns. It made us create a real great onboarding system instead of just throwing people into random classes. It made us write a unique playbook for our gym. It made us rewrite all our offerings and all we do and rethink the results that we wanted to have. It also made us design a habit system that we wanted to create. It made us innovate in coaching and to make our coaches into educators and not only entertainers. Those are not like Hollywood worthy things. It's not like big and flashy. And just like with this Nike stories, like they just needed to do a lot of things due to survival. And I think sometimes those innovations get forgotten, but those are the things that make you continue, and you can continue for a long time. Okay, innovation number 7, that the industry is underestimating coaching. And this drives me to just a simple truth, is that that this is one of the most undervalued professions in society, because during the lockdowns, gyms were threatened as or treated as non-essential. I thought that was insane. I could see, and it's still like this, that people see gyms as fun extras. They didn't see that this was like the best thing you can do to improve your metabolic health, and that will prevent the outcome that you have from almost any disease, or like predict the outcome of any disease. Yeah, this is why we also push innovation hardly here. I want coaching to rise as a status. I want it to be respected just like architecture, law, dentistry, therapy as a part of healthcare, or not healthcare, but health prevention care, preventative care, just like dentistry. It is something that should be ingrained into the backbone of society. So that is one of the insights that I got. Innovation number 8 is that role models and identity shifts. So the real change that we experience as people doesn't come from more information, but it comes from when we change our identity. The people at the gym, they don't change because of macros or reps. They stick to it, or they transform because something inside of them shifts, and this is their identity. I think when we talk about coaching and so on, I like to think about like how others would solve this problem. I think about how would Emma want to train today, and visualizing how that would made easier for those people. And when you do this, you can yourself change your identity. So I can think about like, how would somebody else face this problem? How would somebody else be in this situation and respond? And I could make a more better decision based on the role model that I have. What would my role model do in this situation? And those kind of micro choices over time make a huge impact of where we're going to go in the long future. That has also shaped a lot of like the systems and the programs that we have at Escapist on one rep or one particular person, but from many repetitions, of course. Innovation number 9 was the rebuild of Escapist during lockdowns. So the lockdowns really broke the industry of fitness. Most people left this industry because it was seen as non-essential. That meant every coach that was inspiring to become a coach left the industry. They went for teaching, they went for secure jobs and so on. For us, that was a chance to rebuild, and that's what we did. So at the start, like I mentioned, we created a media studio. We started to do more coaching, more support. The highest paying clients that we had at the gym were the ones that were the most loyal, and they asked how they could pay more. And we learned a lot about general programming, and that the programming was not the real product, but really that support was, accountability was, and relationship was. And when we reopened, we didn't just reopen, but we more or less relaunched, because we had new onboardings, new pricing, new systems, new playbooks, and new standards. And that really changed and shaped where Escapist is today. I remember particularly during that period, we had a client who said, like, if I wouldn't have checked in with her, nobody would have discovered for days if she existed or not. So that was like the importance of what we were doing back then. Innovation number 10 was to realize that momentum is our philosophy. Kind of stumbled across this. This has always been around, but it was never really pointed into, crafted onto paper. This runs through everything, and it's momentum. So once people start moving, everything gets easier. Once coaches start developing, their confidence skyrockets. And once systems lock into place, that's when freedom appears. And momentum separates the gym that survive from the gyms that stagnate. So creating momentum for the members means making them successful in preventing them from stopping, and to install like a software, like a double click on a software that it's installing, and it usually takes 2-3 years for it to really install to become a lifetime habit. And that is the momentum that we want to build. Those are the 10 innovations that I reflected on, and I hope they maybe inspire you also to think about the innovations that you're taking part of, the innovations that you also might be doing. But yeah, I also wanted to say if you've been a member here at Escapist, or if you have lived inside this evolution without maybe necessarily seeing all the gears turning behind the scenes. It's not obvious, and if you're new or you're thinking about joining, you can just know that Escapist is not there by accident. It's the result of years of making mistakes and experimenting, reading books, reflections, getting coached, having coaches, breakthroughs, shaping our beliefs and what makes a good gym. Those things will continue to happen. And if you are a coach or a gym owner listening, one truth I wanted to give you that you can bring with you is that you don't need one big innovation, and you don't need to change everything at once. You need 20, 30, 40 small ones repeated over time and applied with consistency, just like training. And you need to have that care of wanting to do that, the curiosity to do it, be confident to, like with the survival bias there, is that even though chances might not be super high, be realistic and work with those those things and those tools that you have available right now. Nothing else is going to just suddenly appear, but you have the chance to work with the things that you have in front of you, and that comes not only to innovation in the gym, but overall in life, I think. So work with the things that you have. As soon as we stop innovating, that's the time when Escapist also will start dying, and that's not on our plans. Thanks for being here, and thanks for taking part of this experiment. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for listening and giving something worth fighting for. Until next time, see you then. Bye.